Maybe you're a book lover and you can't find the time to read lately, or maybe you've never quite taken to reading books, but you'd like to read more. If you're looking for a way to get into reading or get back into reading regularly, then this might help. Here are 3 habits that help me to read 1 book a week. Hi, I'm Mariela. Welcome to Productive Introvert Community. I support introverted solopreneurs in developing healthy habits so that they have the energy to work on their goals without daily routines that feel forced or that only last 2 weeks. I always loved to read. Ever since my early teens, you could always find me with a book, and I carried books everywhere. You could always find me with a book. I would carry a book to read in public transport on my commutes to and from work when I used to still work in an office. But then life got busier. I started a business, I started a family, and reading got put on the back burner. But I missed it. Lots of people I talk to, especially my introverted friends, are book lovers. It's one of the activities that recharges a lot of introverts and it helps them to feel inspired. There's even a popular phrase out there that most millionaires and billionaires read between 50 and 70 books a year. Whether that is something that inspires you in itself or not, there's plenty to say about the benefits of reading, right? If you're interested in any topic, there's probably a book written about it. Maybe you're a book lover like me and you can't find the time to read lately, or maybe you've never quite taken to reading books, but you'd like to read more. Either way, if you're looking for a way to get into reading or get back into reading regularly, but you can't find the time, then this might help. Here are 3 habits that help me to read 1 book a week. Reading habit number 1. Read 1 chapter before bed. I started this habit when our son was a baby. He was about 9 months old and the COVID-19 lockdowns had just started. So we weren't allowed to leave our homes, but I was juggling baby, my old job that I was still working part-time at the time, and starting up my coaching business. I already had a huge reading list. Being a book lover, there's always books that I'm adding to my reading list. And at that time, more books were coming onto the list around, business topics or topics around habits and time management that I wanted to learn more about. But, juggling all these different things, I didn't really have a lot of time to actually sit and read for long periods of time like I used to. So I thought, what would be the easiest thing I could do to start reading in just a little spare time that I had? Reading 1 single chapter before going to bed turned out to be a great way to be more consistent with reading among that busy schedule. So you can make this habit super easy by leaving a book on the bedside table or even on your pillow if you forget to actually pick up the book when you're going to bed. And use a bookmark or anything. I actually often use 1 square of a piece of toilet paper to mark where I've last read, or things like receipts, anything that I have lying around, just to mark the page. Don't overdo it either, and really stick with 1 or 2 short chapters, because getting sucked in and reading for another 3 hours and then going to bed late, waking up tired, that kind of defeats the purpose, and that can ultimately break down the consistency aspect of the reading habit that you're trying to create. So if you have a hard time putting down the book, then a little trick that I use is to tell yourself that you're going to think about what you've read instead of continuing reading on. And this is actually super helpful because not only does this help you to turn this more into a practice around reading consistently, and it takes the emphasis off actually finishing the book, it also helps you to consolidate the information better and making connections with information that you already have or experience that you have or ideas that you're working on. Reading habit number 2, reading 2 books at the same time. So this habit was basically born out of laziness. I didn't want to get the book that I was reading from another area of the house. My baby was sleeping upstairs and I was too lazy to go up and I didn't want to wake him. So I had about 1 hour to relax before he would be up from his nap. So I just wanted to, get something really quickly that I could just make the most of that hour. And I decided to just pick another book off my bookshelf here in this living space and started reading that one. That little act of laziness turned into a golden habit for me. And from then on, I just kept one book upstairs on my nightstand to read before bed. And I kept a book downstairs to read during my baby's nap time. Reading books on different topics at the same time can also give you different angles to an idea that you're working on and help to make different connections, find other sparks of inspiration that you otherwise wouldn't have. My personal limit is 3 books before I get all jumbled up and I lose track of the storylines. So I usually go with 2. But if you're able to hold space for more books at a time, then, give this a try. Who knows? It might be a golden tip for you as well. A little bonus around this second reading habit is that if you're prone to boredom, so if you get bored easily with reading books, especially nonfiction, I know some people who get bored reading nonfiction. This is also a great habit to turn boredom into consistent reading because you switch it up daily. I also know people who prefer to read fiction before going to bed to really just relax, and leaving nonfiction for during the day because that's more like intellectually, well, I wouldn't say intellectually stimulating. That's not really true. Fiction can be very intellectually stimulating, but like more intense reading. So some people prefer to do nonfiction during the day and then fiction by the nightstand to relax and help them drift off to sleep. So try out a different combination, see what might work for you. Reading habit number 3, don't force a book if it doesn't capture your interest. This one I find is super important, and I wish that I'd taken it on board earlier in my life. For the first few chapters when you're reading a book, you might need to get used to the writer's style, and you're still kind of getting into a flow with it. But if you notice that you're struggling to pick up the book or to get through a chapter 5 chapters in, let it go. I used to feel compelled to stick with a book through to the end. And there were many books that I struggled through for weeks and weeks. What usually would happen is I wouldn't finish the book anyway. I'd feel guilty about it. And I'd feel that I couldn't start another book until I finished the last one. So obviously this only caused me to read less and less and to feel guilty no matter what I did. So the biggest tip that I can give you is give yourself permission to quit a book, if you're struggling to get through it. There's no shame in that. In fact, go to your stack of books or your nightstand or whatever right now and take a book that you've been struggling to get through and that you actually kind of know that you don't really want to read right now, but that you've been telling yourself that you should read it. Just take that book and put it back on the shelf. Tell yourself that for now you've gotten all you needed from the book, and you'll come back to it when it's relevant again. The point is, you'll only read consistently if you enjoy reading. So don't be afraid to quit a book halfway through if it feels forced. I find that every time you read a book, you get something different from it anyway. So you may not yet be in a season of your life that the book is fully relevant to you. And this can change a few weeks or a few months down the line. You can always come back to a book when it becomes relevant again or when it captures your attention again. For now, pick another book and just be inspired. And I have one bonus tip for you. Try a different format. Especially if the topic of a book does interest you, but you're struggling to get through a book, maybe the written format isn't the right fit for you right now. Between my business and my family, I have much less time to actually sit down and read. I still read a lot, but these days I actually listen more than I read. I listen to podcasts or audiobooks when I'm cleaning or cooking. For me, that's a great combination, and I can get a lot of information that way. So if you would really like to read a book, but you notice you're just not getting through it, try the audio version or use the search function in ebooks if you're trying to get some specific information. Starting in a place like YouTube, for example, for background videos, or book summary apps like Blinkist, those are also great ways to check if a book actually covers what you're interested in and if it's worth your time to read it right now. It could also be a great way to brush up on vocabulary or basic concepts. For example, if you're unfamiliar with a topic, if you're going into a new area, and you can do that first before you jump into a content-heavy book on the same topic. So those are 3 habits that helped me to start reading again at a time in my life when there was a lot going on with a new baby, and doing these 3 things actually helped me to read a book a week despite having that busy schedule. What habits do you have that help you to read more books? Share one with us in the comments. It might be helpful to other people watching or listening to this. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Your attention really is your most valuable resource, and I appreciate you sharing it with me today. See you next week. Thank you for listening to the Productive Introvert Community Podcast. If you're an introverted entrepreneur and you're ready to thrive in your own way, then connect with me on thefrankermessage.com/content. Those are also great ways to check if the book is actually covering what you're interested in. If a book is actually covering what you're interested in, I can't even speak. Why did I make this tongue twister? Between my business